Let's hear some stories about your marriage.
Well, oh yes. When I had to marry my husband, Lou, my parents were against it. And why they were against it, especially my mother. My father was quiet. He always was quiet. My mother was a spokesman. Anyway, my mother...
Spokesperson.
Spokesperson, so I'm on green. So my mother was against it only because friends of hers came to her house and said to her, how can you let your daughter go around with such a boy? Because she thought, and she liked him, she thought he was nice looking and everything, but she couldn't figure out what was the matter. So they told him, well, if you're going to let Hindi watch, it won't be nice.
Say it as it is.
Anyway, they told her that his brother...
Did you catch that? You'll hear it when we play it back.
Huh?
Go ahead.
They said, don't let her... The father was a crook. His father was a crook. Is a crook, because his father was living. And his sister married to a gangster. And his brother married a shifter. So what would your daughter want to go into a home like that when you come from such a nice family? So once they told her that, she really let me have it. She says, and I'm going to say it in Jewish, "Verwus gehst du mit der gesunden Kopf in a kranken Bett," which means, why are you going with a good head in a sick bed? Yeah. Anyway, I didn't listen to her because I don't like to brag, but I was quite popular. I was going out with boys since I was 12. And, I have to tell you this, when I was 12 years old, I was invited to the AZA ball. And that was the biggest deal in town, to go to the AZA ball. And my mother made me a turquoise dress with pleats on the bottom, torso length, with a big bow in my hair, and a purse to match, a drawstring purse. I said, I was so proud. All the girls on the street were watching. This guy comes up in a car. His name was Marvin Mitchell, with a white car, and he was...
Your mother at 12 let you go out in the car with the dog.
Yes, because it was the AZA dance.
What's the AZA?
That's like the sweetheart ball. Anyway, I went to this dance, and I was probably the youngest one there, but I tried to look old. Anyway...
How did you manage that?
I put lipstick on when my booby wasn't looking. Anyway...
Whose lipstick?
Her lipstick.
Okay.
Anyway, Marvin wasn't so good looking. Vishulo. Ershenotoit. Anyway, Marvin had a white car, and it was so flashy. It was his father's car, and all the girls on the street were saying, she's going to the AZA ball. Anyway, I went to the ball, and I had a ball.
Clever! What a clever statement.
Anyway, Marvin Mitchell, I have the picture. I have a picture of a whole gang of us together that I'm going to show my children. Marvin Mitchell's with someone else. My husband is with someone else, and I'm with Harvey, who I went steady with before I went with my husband, and we're all in the same picture. Ruby Fenwick's in it too, without Florence. I want to show you.
She wasn't born yet.
She wasn't born yet?
Anyway.
Where was Florence?
Florence lived in St. Catharines.
Ah.
He met her after.
Okay.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is...
yes, what are you trying to say?
So before I met Lou, I worked for Crown Upholstery. My boss was Sam Rotenberg and Leo Sachs. I was the bookkeeper there. I could bring any guy in, they wouldn't say nothing. They'd leave and say, go in the other office. That's how good they were to me. Sam Rotenberg's sister's son came in from California to be my usher. And Sam Rotenberg's son was my page boy. That's how wonderful they were to me. Anyway, Sam Rotenberg's brother worked in the factory as an upholsterer. And he said to me, Lil, I want you to be a bridesmaid at my wedding. So I said, where do I come to be a bridesmaid at your wedding? I mean, you probably have plenty of people. He says, no, I think you'd look good, walking down the aisle. So I asked, no, I didn't ask my mother. I said yes, because if I'm working, I have to ask my mother. She took all my pay away anyway. She gave me $2. So what I did is my girl from Pearl Nisker had a gorgeous gown, and she was going with Lou. She was going with my Lou. And she lent me this gown, and I wore this gown, and I walked down the aisle. And I walked with the most gorgeous guy you ever saw, and a dancer. What a dancer! And I always liked guys that were handsome and could dance good. And he was the one Jackie trained. Gorgeous. Anyway, I met the whole family. He was the bride's brother. Jackie disappeared, and no one, the whole family hasn't seen him since. His brothers told me. So Jackie used to take me out Saturday night. Sammy Wise took me out Friday night, and Lou Train took me out Sundays. The one I liked the best was Jackie Train. He had no money, he didn't have a car, but he was so damn handsome, and he could dance. Sammy Wise, Louis Train wanted me to go out with him Saturday, but I told him I was busy Saturday. He said, what about Friday? I said, I'm busy Friday, so he took me every Sunday. He was rich. That's Dr. Train's father. He took me out every Sunday with a car, and he always took me out for dinner, but he was short, so I had to wear flats. And Sammy Wise used to take me to the Casa Loma, rich like you can't imagine.
Excuse me.
Bless you. And he took me with a car, dressed in a suit and a shirt and tie and socks and shoes to match, and he used to come in the kitchen and sit and talk to Booby. She was nuts over him. Anyway, every week was Casa Loma out to eat in a car, the best of everything. But looks, you could die. Anyway, he started buying me gifts. And I knew something was going to happen. So I didn't want to go with him anymore, because I figured, what am I going to lead him on for? There's nothing going to happen here. Even if he thinks so, I didn't think so.
Do you believe that, Elaine? She wouldn't keep going for the gifts?
No. Not because of the gifts, because he was leading to serious things.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, he phoned me, and Booby answered the phone, and she said, Lil, it's for you. I said, say I'm sick. No. So I said, who is it? She said, go answer yourself. So I told Belle Starr, lived upstairs. I said, Belle, you go answer, tell him I'm sick. So Belle went to answer, and she said she's sick. So he says, well, I'm coming over. She said, no, don't come over, you might catch it. He says, it's okay. He came over, brought me flowers and candy. I said, oh shit, how am I going to get rid of him? So he kept asking me, and even if I answered the phone, I kept saying I'm busy. And to this day, when he meets me, he says, you almost were my wife. Because I meet him. Anyway, the other one was, and Lou Train, like I said, he was too short. Then I was going with Harvey. What was Harvey's last name? Harvey was very good looking, and he could sing. Oh, when he sang, you could die for his voice. I said, but he had no money. He couldn't work, but all he could do was sing. But handsome, blonde, blue-eyed, handsome, and when he sang, you'd think he was Frank Sinatra. So, well, I'm going with Harvey. I'm also going with Sammy Wise. So my next door neighbor, Mrs. Shoichet Visholam, my girlfriend Sarah's mother, called me in the house, and she said to me, what do you go with Sammy for? He's not nice looking. Go with the singer, he can sing. And I listened to her. But everybody told me she was jealous because her daughter didn't have anybody and I had two. Anyway, I didn't go with what's his name already? Harvey, the singer. That's when I met Lou. Pearl Nisker, that loaned me the gown, was going steady with Lou. And I happened to see a picture of Lou in Pearl Nisker's dresser with a pipe in his hand. And I said, who's that gorgeous looking guy? And she says, oh, that's Lil Roy. I says, have I ever met him? And she says, no. But she wasn't going with him. She was going with someone else. But she kept the picture because she liked him.
I thought she was going steady with him.
She was, but they weren't going steady.
Oh, okay.
He's not going to marry a girl that doesn't keep kosher.
Okay.
Anyway, so Pearl Nisker went with, oh, I know his name, I forget it now. Pearl, I'll remember, he's in the picture too, with her. No, with somebody else, she's with somebody else. Anyway, Pearl, so then through Pearl I met Mary, my sister-in-law Mary, who lives in Israel now. And Mary and I became friends. And she came very often to my house, and she liked the way we lived and everything. She liked my parents, she liked my home. She was a very quiet but a nice person. And we used to go to Wasaga Beach together, her and I, not alone. My brother would drive us, Benny. And he took my mother and father with, and her and I, to Wasaga Beach. And I said, you know what? Let's take your mother too. It was so hot, it was boiling out. We drove by 564 Dundas, and Mrs. Roy was sitting on the porch, and I said, Mary, go call your mother, tell her to come. She said, she won't go. If I call her, you call her. I went over, and I said, Mrs. Roy, we would like to take you with us for the day, because it's so hot. Why would you sit out here in the heat? There was no air conditioning in those days. And she said, no, 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 thank you very much, Mankin, Mankin. Thank you very much, Mankin, but it's okay. Anyway, we went to Wasaga Beach, and Mary paired off with my brother Benny. And who was I supposed to be with? I forget. Anyway, oh, she was already in love with Dave Partnoy, and she was on her way with Howard, which we didn't know, and Howard was born the day I got married.
Ah.
Anyway, so about Lou again, my mother forbid me to go with him after she heard the story about what her friend said. So all these other guys were phoning to ask me out, and I said, don't call me to the phone, because I'm not going to go to the phone to anybody else but him. So she says, so don't. So anyway, my cousin Minnie's mother, Sonny Goodman, she saw the way I felt, and she was a good person. She was a goodwill ambassador. She always tried to do good for everybody. So she went to the Y and asked Mr. Yurkovich, who is my mechutin now, who my son-in-law's grandfather, who at that point, I didn't know Paul, and she said, do you know a boy called Lil Roy? And he said, yes, I do. She says, what's he like? She says, he's a quiet boy, he minds his own business, he takes the towel, and when he goes home, he delivers it and gives me back the towel. He was the towel man there. And he's all right, but his father, you. I said, so then he went to Himmel's confectionery store at the corner of Kensington and Dundas. Mr. Himmel had a big confectionery store and 3 sons. My daughter met the Himmel boy at my house. He's a lawyer. So he had 2 lawyers and a doctor. A nice family. So she asked Mr. Himmel, you know a boy called Lil Roy? He says, oh yeah, he's a good boy. He comes in here, he buys a chocolate bar, he reads the sports page. He minds his own business. So she says, and what about the family? She says, don't talk about the family. So she comes back and she says to Booby, no, what did they say? Booby says to her. She says, they said he's wonderful. She didn't tell them the rest. Anyway, she still wouldn't believe it. And people are phoning me, even my girlfriends are phoning me. And she calls me to the phone. I says, I'm not going out of this room. Stand on your head. I'm staying in this room. She says, did you ever see such a crazy girl? She says, looks fly out the window. I says, I don't care what you say. That's what I want. I want to have beautiful children. So she says, give a kid what she wants, a dancer, good looking. She doesn't look for panusa, money, just good looks, good looks, good looks. Anyway, what happened was my brother Benny intervened. And he said, Ma, you're making a mistake. You want a sick girl on your hands? Then do what you're doing, because you're going to have a very sick girl on your hands. She says, what are you talking? What do you mean? He says, I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. What do you care? The way she makes her bed, that's the way she'll lie. It's not your business. She says, but she is my business. She could get the top, a doctor, a lawyer. She has to take just anybody. She's got everything that a guy wants, so look at what she picks. So Benny said, Ma, he happens to be good looking, and she goes for looks. So she's, if things are going to work out, he'll make panusa and he'll make money. But this is what she wants. Anyway, I take out this picture of all of us together at a party, and my brother Benny's standing there. And I says, Ma, in this picture, who's the best looking boy? There's about 20 couples. She points to Lou. I says, well, that's the guy I want to go with. Can you believe this? And anyways, so what happened? I went out with him, and our first date again was to see Gone with the Wind. What date was that when the Gone with the Wind first came out?
Elaine, do you know?
He took me to see Gone with the Wind. And
Where'd you see it?
at the Lowe's Theater. Then
That's the Uptown, right?
yeah. And what happened after that? Anyway, then a year, we planned a wedding for July the 1st. A year later, we couldn't get a hall for June because all the halls were taken. And my girlfriend Mary was also going steady, and we both got married on the same day. Mary Vishola Mishana Stu, she passed away. And her husband married again, and his second wife just passed away.
But you married on the 4th of July, not the 1st.
The 4th of July, pardon me. I'm thinking of Lou's birthday was the 1st of June.
Right.
Anyway, we got married, and at the wedding, it was a beautiful wedding. My parents paid for it, and it was at the Belvin Hall on College Street. Well, because now two sides paid. My parents looked after everything. They wouldn't pay a cent anyway. Anyway, at the wedding, as I'm walking down the aisle after he breaks the glass, and I walked down the aisle first, a man grabs me and he's kissing me. I'm wondering, who the heck's this man? I don't even know him, he's kissing me. It ended up to be my husband's boss. He gave me $50. At that time, $50 was like a mayontek. A mayontek means a lot of money. I couldn't get over it because I didn't know who he was, and I said to my husband, who's that kissing me? At least that's my boss. My husband worked for Dundas Lumber at the time. Oh, I forgot to tell you, while I was going with him, he didn't have a job. And my mother says, you're looking at the looks, where's the money? So I said, Ma, he'll make money. She says, when? You're going to get married and he's not going to make money? I said, but I'm working. She says, you're going to work for him? Anyway, he did get a job before we got married at Dundas Lumber. But before that, he used to go with Maxie on the trains, delivering pillows and selling sandwiches. Not every day, only when Maxie thought it would be busy, he'd go with him. Otherwise, he'd be sleeping. And his father called him Lazy Laser. And before we got married, my brother-in-law Percy phoned, who was married to Lou's sister, phoned my mother and said to my mother, don't you dare leave your daughter marry Lou, because he's lazy and he'll never make money. Now, do you think that's nice that a brother-in-law, his side, should phone my side and tell such a story? And my mother, was furious. Anyway, it ended up, we were married, the things went well. It took a long time, but things went, I worked like a horse.
Did you, I understood that Dad used to flood skating rinks.
Oh, yes. So my husband got a job for the government, only Saturday nights, to water the skating rinks for the kids to skate. So every Saturday night I used to put on my father's combinations and put on heavy pants and a heavy jacket.
That's combinations. Go on.
And Booby would say, where are you going? That's the way you go on a date? So I said, well, it's very cold where we're going. But she didn't know I was going to the skating rink to help him water the ice, which I did. Stupid me. and he, and that's what we did. Every Saturday night we ended up at the watering, because we didn't have a car. We didn't have a car till Elaine was born. Anyway, so what I'm trying to, anyway, what we did is, he worked at Dundas Lumber. My boss sold his business. My boss opened up a furniture store at Eglinton and where?
Out in the East End?
Out in the East End. And he closed up the business. And he didn't need anybody anymore. But he didn't open it right away. It took him a while because he didn't know what he wanted to do. And Sid Jacobs, not the dentist, but my husband's boyfriend was looking for a job. He's an engineer, and they wouldn't hire a Jewish engineer. And he was talking about, gee, I have to get work, I've got kids, I don't know how I'm going to support them and that. So I said, Sid, I don't know if this will work, but would you like me to speak to my boss and maybe he will hire you? And he said, yeah, any job, as long as I get something. Anyway, I did speak to my two bosses and they hired him. And he worked there for many, many years, and he thanked me for it because he finally had a good job. So I did a mitzvah. Anyway, what am I up to now? Oh, we were married, and how did we work? He worked at Dundas Lumber, and I worked at Goulding & Sons. I was a bookkeeper there. And on Sundays, we delivered dry goods. When you couldn't get hosiery, I got hosiery. I had an inn. So I used to get stockings.
Why couldn't you get hosiery?
Because it was a war or something.
Okay.
You just couldn't. Anyway, leave it to me. I found where to get hosiery. and I'd get a dozen. They'd only give me a dozen at a time. So he'd take half a dozen, he'd go one way and I'd go the other with our bicycles, and we sold it. Then they wanted 5 pair, 6 pair, 8 pair. I had nowhere to keep them. I needed boxes and boxes of hosiery. So Booby emptied out her dining room and let me use her dining room. The walls, the hosiery was climbing up the walls. Then from the hosiery, I sold blankets, I sold pillowcases, sheets, candle holders, Hebrew books, you name it, baby stuff, because I had an inn with a Bradshaw and Son, sold me all this, and I sold it to the people. And we had a book, 50 cents a week, $1 a week. I kept the book, he kept the book. And then when we go to collect, we'd bring them more stuff. And this went on and on and on and on until we were able to have a store of our own.
Wow.
Now I have to tell you